All right, welcome back to Show Up and Ball, week 4 in the books for the NFL. I used to be able to say we're 25% way through the season, but now we're not because it's technically not true. We could say 17 games or 18 weeks. But anyways, about the quarter mark of the season. I am Aaron, and as per usual, I'm joined by Mr. John Harris, and we're just going to jump right into it. So first off, going to go with the Thursday night game. And we'll mention something a little after that. It's about stuff that happened afterwards. But Cincinnati Bengals managed to make a comeback against the Jacksonville Jaguars for a second there, especially in the first half. Jacksonville up 14-0, looking like they were going to get their first win. Urban Meyer decides to go for it. Doesn't get the touchdown. I don't know if they're at the goal line, but they were pretty close. They're like, I think at the 2 or 3. They don't convert half over. Then the Bengals come out, score 14 points in the third quarter right away to tie the ball game, and then they eventually end up winning. And then obviously Urban Meyer under fire, not for just that, but also stuff after the game. But we'll talk about that after the quick analysis of this. But yeah, even in live action, I was saying you take the points there, you go up 3 scores. Like no matter if they get the 2-point conversions, they have to do 3 scores. This is in college, Urban. So and then the fact that I think it was at Cincinnati, that's why I think you take the field goal, get your points. Keep the momentum. I know it wasn't a touchdown like you wanted, but hey, you don't want to give this team any momentum going to half. They did, and kind of saw once again. Also, that field goal, Cincinnati kicks that field goal at the end to tie it, and maybe you win in overtime if you hit that field goal. So that's my big criticism. Not much to say like X and O's wise of this game. It was nice to see James Robinson. Actually, I'm not a James Robinson owner because I want to avoid it. He had 2 touchdowns, so good for you that way. Otherwise, Joe Burrow and the Bengals make a comeback. Joe Burrow 2-0 against Mr. Trevor Lawrence. But John, what were your thoughts on this Thursday nighter and some of the things that went along during that game, especially that decision itself?
I thought the Jaguars surprised a lot of people, myself included. But it was just a little disappointing that I feel like you said, with that decision, that was sort of the beginning of the end because they just couldn't really get much going after that, especially in the second half. Like the Bengals they really started to dominate. And so I don't know. The Jaguars, it felt like they put a really good half together and they just couldn't finish the job, and they allowed Joe Burrow and the Bengals to win a game that I honestly think they shouldn't have, because that first half, it was pretty night and day that the Jaguars were playing like the better team. But in the second half, they just collapsed. So yeah, I mean, the NFL, I know that there's like a lot, especially with other sports, the NBA and all these kind of things, I think it's really heavily influenced by players. The NFL absolutely is, but I think the NFL, compared to most sports, is typically won between a battle of the coaches. It is a chess match, and there's probably like 8 to 10 moments in a game where certain coaches are gonna have moments where they can put their team in position to win. It didn't feel like Urban Meyer did that on the entire game. It felt like Zach Taylor eventually got the best of him. So yeah, it's the Jags. Can't say I'm super surprised, but I am glad, like you said, that James Robinson finally got involved, because you have a rookie quarterback, you're not a very good team, and you have a running back who looked good last year. I don't understand why the first few games they weren't getting him involved. It seemed like running the ball actually had some success for them. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny how that works, but so yeah, that was that game. And obviously the bigger news, Urban Meyer seeing that his bar in Ohio with, anyway, that whole issue. I just want to, if you want to know more, I'd do more homework on it, but I'm just not a good look for Urban Meyer. Like, you're 0-4, and then you're seeing the next day, like, that's something that if anything, we should see like a player do that. And even if a player were to do that, everyone would be scolding them. So, and then obviously today there's the news, and this is only relevant because, luckily we're doing this today. As of Tuesday, there's the news, a lot of, I guess I've got the report where exactly said, but there's a lot of unrest in Jacksonville in regards to Urban Meyer. We've already mentioned it, being the strength conditioning coach. I forgot what issue he had off the field, but he was not perceived well. And then some of Urban decisions in the past haven't done well. And and you sent that one picture or a graphic where it had the stat about some of that one national championship team he had where like X amount of players were arrested. So, and it really starts with Urban Meyer, and you say you want to bring in a culture with him, but he's not. I don't know what he's preaching to the players per se, but he's not a great example already. Like just action wise, and especially in the NFL, actions speak louder than words. These aren't 18 to 21-year-old kids that you're in charge of that you can just say the same speech you said the last 3 years and they'll get inspired. And like these are adults. They're gonna call you out on crap. So we'll see how that unfolds with them, Urban Meyer and the gang. And but honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if Jacksonville gets rid of him, at least by the end of the season. I'm not going to sit here and say they can get rid of him now, but I think they're going to give him the rest of the season. And if they don't like what unfolds, I think they should cut loose and go with someone else. So we'll see what happens there. Anything else you want to add there? It's okay if we move on. I'm not sure if you had. It's just one thing that annoys me because, players will scrutinize heavily and do that. And then for a coach to do that, okay, just a little hypocritical, but it is Urban Meyer's first stint in the NFL. Not that that's an excuse, but I think he's learning the hard way. Can't get away with some stuff that you might have gone away with in college, Urban. So, all right. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say that I feel like the most important thing for me from a coach is you got to build a good culture. Like you can be the best, coach in the league. If your culture sucks, then nobody's going to want to play for you and the fans aren't going to like you and the owner's not going to be happy with you. And Urban Meyer, like you said, the culture in every place there's been issues. And so that just seems like a massive red flag. And the fact that it's starting this early in the NFL, that's just such a dumb decision, right? There's going to be people there. There's going to be cameras.
And he was posing for the camera. It's like they took it and didn't see it. He was like looking at the camera, smiling for the camera. So it's like, come on, Urban.
And also,
man.
Was he there by himself? Did he not have any people with him that were like, this is a bad idea? It
was his bar. I guess. I think he owns the bar. So
it was just a stupid decision, a dumb one. It just seems like people, everyone saw this coming. And I don't think the Urban Meyer experiment should last much longer. And I say that not just because I have disliked him historically, but because, in the NFL, especially with a young rookie quarterback, you do not want to potentially hurt their long-term development and growth and just everything, like when you've invested so much into that guy. So, I think for Jacksonville, this is the start of potentially, the end of the Urban Meyer era, and that might be good for their players long-term.
Yeah, and I also want to add too, in the time where players aren't afraid to force trades or leave the team that left them. If Trevor, especially if Trevor may feel like, man, y'all don't know what you're doing. I'm going to go elsewhere after his rookie contract. That's a real possibility. Even if Trevor does develop, maybe soured by how the relationship started, because this is the start of the, building a relationship with the team and organization. So we'll have to see how that impacts things going forward and what Jacksonville does. So anyway, sorry, I forgot to mention the score. Bengals won that game 24-21. Should have kicked the field goal, Urban. Anyways, on to the next one. Washington football team also escaped with a narrow victory against the Atlanta Falcons, 34-30. Taylor Heineke played great. But really, I think the story really for Washington has been their defense. Their defense has not lived up, especially to my expectations. I thought they would get better, especially after last year, because in theory they only got better. Added William Jackson and drafted a linebacker first round and Jamin Davis, but it just hasn't come together this year. I think they did change DCs. I know I don't remember Jack Del Rio being there last year, so I think from what I've read and seen, he's been a little more simplistic. Hasn't brought as many blitzers or creative things in the front end, so maybe that's what's affecting it, and that's the reason why that their front four has been lackluster. I guess that's the best phrase to say. It's been very disappointing. I think it's honestly, if I were to redo my edge rankings right now, I'm not sure Chase Young would make the top 5. And once again, that's not really all on Chase, but a little bit is on Chase. But it's the fact that this front four, I know I lamented over it, and we were high on it. Just hasn't been against Atlanta, a team that got dominated week 1 against Philly, who has a very good front four. I know that Atlanta's kind of desperate, not doing great, new head coach, all that, but just I expect a better from Washington as a whole. But John, what were your thoughts in regards to this game?
Uh, for a second there, maybe I was thinking like, wow, either Atlanta is better than I thought, and
Hmm.
a lot of people are giving them credit for, or the Giants and Washington just suck if they're losing to the Falcons. But Washington, they were able to pull it out. Taylor Heineke with the late game heroics. That J.D. McKissick play was pretty wild. So good on the Washington offense for being able to pull it out. Terry McLaurin's a beast, if anyone didn't know. But yeah, I feel like it's impossible to really be happy about this game as a Washington fan because your defense gave up 30 points. Matt Ryan has not looked amazing this year. He did in this game. He threw for 4 touchdowns, didn't have any turnovers, almost 300 yards. Cordell Patterson killed him. I don't know. As a Washington fan, or not as a Washington, if I was a Washington fan, I would be pretty disappointed in the way that my team played in this one. Obviously, the offense did what they needed to do, but Atlanta's defense is like there's just not a lot of talent there. So your offense being able to score shouldn't be,
Surprising.
shocking. Yeah. And then I don't know. As a Washington, if I was a Washington fan, I wouldn't really understand what to take away from this game. If anything, I'd feel a little bit worse about my team moving forward because the defense just has not been able to figure it out. It's still early. There's still a ton of football left to play. So, it's not fully time to hit the panic button, but with the amount of points this defense is allowing in a division where Jalen Hurts is being able to put up a lot of yards and a lot of points, the Cowboys are obviously
And they
a
haven't
really
even
good
played the
offense.
Cowboys yet. Like they've only played
Which
teams.
luckily for them, they don't play them until like the very end of the year. I think 2 of the last 5 games are the Cowboys, so they have time to figure that out. But when you're right now, at least the way the division's looking is the Cowboys are very offensive heavy. Their defense is surviving on turnovers, but still they rely on the offense. The Eagles offensive heavy, they need to put up a lot of points to win. And then the Giants, their defense also hasn't been amazing, so they're going to have to rely on once again scoring. You'd want your defense to be able to stop the opposing offenses, but so far they just don't look like they're able to do that.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens here. These teams going forward. It seems like Atlanta's, at least from the start of the season, I know it's not translating to the record, still showing some fight, a little bit better than we were starting to give them credit for the first 2 weeks. And meanwhile, Washington, like John mentioned, a lot of concerns, and they also just lost Brand Scherf for at least 2 weeks to a sprained MCL. Logan Thomas is questionable with he got injured that last game as well, and I think their rookie Dammy Brown also got hurt, and Curtis Samuel, I think it's still up in the air for next week. So starting to lose people too, on top of the fact that they got to figure things out. So we'll see if Jack Del Rio and that defense can turn it around.
Which just to clarify how poor their defense has been, there's only 2 defenses that have allowed more points so far on the year, and that's the Falcons and the Chiefs. And so, they're a defense that was supposed to be top 5 this year is allowing that many points. So that puts it in perspective of why we're harping on this.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens there. But yeah, going on to the next game here. Not much to say in this one either. But Buffalo blows out Houston Texans 40-0. Not going to say I'm shocked, but really, I think this is more of a statement as to Buffalo, where they are right now. Offense is clicking, and we saw Josh Allen, Diggs, have a good game statistically. Not that we were worried, but just confirmation that that connection's still there. But I think the bigger thing was, and I think that's been the story for the Bills this season, is the defense. I know it's the Houston Texans, but the fact that the Bills have, I think it's the Bills, right? The Bills have shut out 2 teams this year. Is an incredible feat. And regardless, their defense has been pretty dominant, especially compared to last year. Like we've mentioned, guys like Gregory Rousseau, even Jerry Hughes looked better. AJ Epinesa, their defense has just grown and gotten better, and also their offense too. I also forgot to mention. This game too, a prime example. Ran the ball pretty well. Stayed patient with the run. I think they had 28 runs between the 2 running backs, and Josh Allen dropped back to 29 times. That's really good balance. We're seeing. Dawson Knox. I know he's a pop. I think. Did you have him in your wire pickups?
Yeah, last week.
So yeah, John was all right. Which again, all the people that want to harp on John, Dawson Knox had 2 tutties last week. I'm just saying. And also, regardless,
I've been hitting on the waiver pickups. That's all I'm saying. Cordero Patterson, Dawson Knox, like Derek Carr.
It's okay.
We've been putting out a lot of good waivers.
People only want to highlight your failures because it's easy to do so. But regardless, going back to Dawson Knox and the Bills, like he's been a guy that the Bills have liked for a while. I think last year he was dealing with injury and things like that. And like we mentioned before, tight ends they usually take it for years. Like people are. I see some people hitting the panic button on Kyle Pitts and the Falcons. Like that's why I didn't touch him in drafts, because I was like, not that I don't believe in the talent. It's just it takes a few years, and sometimes it doesn't even work, because we've seen guys like Eric Ebron, first round pick, didn't work out. Remember that Evan Ingram and Joku, OJ Howard draft? Those guys are really. I think George Kittle's the only one. He's a 5th round pick. So, not to say that I'm not saying that he's a bust, but I'm just saying like that happens with tight ends. So, anyways, regardless, Dawson Knox has been shown to be a reliable target for, as well as Diggs, Beasley, Emmanuel Sanders, and also Gabriel Davis. So, Bills are looking really good, and probably one of the best teams, if not the best team in the AFC right now, I would say. So, that took longer than it should have. John, what were your thoughts in regards to the Bills Texans game?
Well, I picked the Texans to cover because it was a 16-point spread. I mean,
I don't blame you. It
obviously,
was tough. I was sitting here when I made that pick. I was like, I didn't feel great about it.
it was just such a big spread, but I think this game just really highlighted that I can't trust, first off, the Texans anymore after the first few games, especially with David Mills under center, but then also the Bills. I mean, their defense, like you said, dominant. I think they have the least points allowed in the entire NFL. Yeah, they do. Only 44 points allowed on the year. I mean, it helps that 2 shutouts have contributed to that, but their point differential is just absurd at 90 point differential. 134 scored, only 44 allowed. So, yeah, I think they are tied. Sorry, they are tied for second in the NFL for points scored, and then have right now the least amount of points against them. So they're playing on a whole nother level right now. But this is, I don't really have much else to say about this week's game, but I think next week is going to be a big test because they do play the Chiefs. We'll obviously get more into that in the next episode. But the defense right now, they're looking really good. They're killing it. And if they can keep this up all year, the Bills are going to be a dangerous team, because I mean, I was literally driving on the way home from work, and I was just thinking, like, Josh Allen, I mean, he hasn't had the level of dominance as he did last year, but he doesn't need to. Like, their defense is killing it. Their run game is showing up. Like, they don't have to just force feed Stephon Diggs and Cole Beasley, because Emmanuel Sanders is there. Gabriel Davis is getting involved. Dawson Knox has been solid. So like Josh Allen, he doesn't really have to just go crazy, because when you're up by 30 points, like what's the point? Just manage the game, don't turn it over, and there you go. Like, you're gonna win. So I guess it sucks for fantasy owners, because Josh Allen isn't having to just go bonkers every week like he did last year, but he's still doing really well. So yeah. The Bills, they're looking like a dangerous team. And it's going to be interesting to see how they're going to, continue moving forward if this defense keeps playing like this.
Yeah. So, and yeah, like John mentioned, we'll definitely talk about that next episode, since they do match up against the Chiefs. But going on to an NFC North matchup, once again, this shouldn't take long. Bears beat the Lions 24-14. Justin Fields' second start, but I feel like this is really his first start since played better. Obviously, they won, but wasn't sacked 9 times. Granted, wasn't playing the Browns, but Lions have shown to be a tough team in the past few weeks, and they almost kind of made the comeback. But not much to say in this game. I mean, Matt Nagy, it's about time. You kind of helped Justin Fields out, and it sucks that David Montgomery.
Real quick, I don't know if you know this, Matt Nagy actually handed off play calling to his offensive coordinator in this game.
Oh, I did not know that. So, well, congrats to the offensive coordinator. I did hear in a press conference, I'm not sure if this press conference was before or after, but like Nagy still isn't like fully committing to Fields the rest of the year. He's still saying if Andy's healthy, we'll see what happens next week. So that's a whole another can of worms. But, good win for the Bears, for the Lions. Like, I feel for Dan Campbell. I still think that they're going in the right direction. It's just there's just not much to work with, like in Detroit. So we'll see what happens. I mean, but anything else you wanted to add regards to this game? I honestly didn't watch it. So
David Montgomery got hurt. He's out for 4 to 5 weeks. That sucks. But Damian Williams, great backup. We saw what he was able to do years ago on the Chiefs. So he's more than capable. But yeah, good win for the Bears. I'm just glad that, the offense coordinator, he got to actually take over the play calling, and he put Fields in a position to succeed. And yeah, it was a good game plan, and it looked like what a rookie quarterback should be running as opposed to what he had to do last week against the Browns.
Yeah, helping him out, playing to his strengths and such. So,
Running the
alrighty.
ball a lot too.
Yeah, that too. So, alrighty. So, going on to the next game here. I'm sure John, I watched most of this game, but I'm sure John did too. Dallas Cowboys beat the Carolina Panthers 36-28. Really popped off. It was really the second half when they really blew away this game. I mean, Dallas offense looked, it's like kind of like where I put the Raiders last week. They can do everything they want to do. Like, oh, this week we can run the ball more. We can just kill you with a short passing game, or we can also, go Dallas a few years ago where we're going to, spread you out and just throw bombs down the field. So, but I think the biggest surprise really has been Dallas's defense, like John mentioned, forcing turnovers. Trevon Diggs 2 picks this game, and still getting disruption too, even without DeMarcus Lawrence. I think that's the biggest thing. And also, like, I know you're very critical of Jalen Smith, but he's had some moments. Like, I think just we're seeing that this defense as a whole, like I mentioned last week, we're seeing when the pieces fit, when it works. And I think obviously give credit to Dan Quinn. Sorry, wrong Dan. Dan Quinn. I think he's also mixed it up defensively, not just sitting in cover 3 like he did back in Atlanta, throwing some creative blitzes, concepts, zones, things like that. And he's gotten these guys playing really just, I won't say fearless, but at least it seems a lot more instinctual. They're playing more comfortable. I think it also helps that Trevon Diggs, sophomore year, he's already went through his rookie struggles. Maybe that's what, but I really think it's just more comfortable in the scheme as well. But John, you're obviously the Dallas Cowboy fan here. I'm gonna let you take it away.
I was really impressed by this game. I think the Panthers, obviously, that I didn't expect them to have the best defense the entire year. So, I mean, the way that they were being praised about being the number 1 defense through the first 3 weeks, I wasn't going to say that this was like a utter domination and, oh my God, the Cowboys are the greatest offense ever because they beat the Panthers, because that's what some people might try to do. I think the Panthers, their defense just got brought back to a little bit of reality, which is there's a lot of high scoring offenses in this league and they're going to beat you in different ways. And the reason the Panthers have been successful so far was the blitz. They've been pressuring a lot of quarterbacks just throughout the first 3 weeks, and it was working. But Kellen Moore, I think he was ready for it. He made sure that there was a lot of different ways that they were able to overcome the blitz. And I think it's also just a little unfortunate timing for the Panthers because they, just lost J.C. Horn. They trade for C.J. Henderson. They throw him in first game, and the Cowboys knew that he was there, probably didn't understand the scheme fully yet. So they attacked him. All 4 touchdowns in the passing game were on C.J. Henderson's side of the field. They weren't all against C.J. Henderson, but they were on that side of the field. And I think that was by design because, once again, he just showed up like 5-6 days ago. Like, you can't fully learn the scheme in that amount of time. So great play calling from Kellen Moore in the offense. The third quarter was probably the most dominant quarter I've ever seen out of any Cowboys team ever. They went into halftime down 14-13 and came out of the third quarter. Technically, if you include like the first play of the fourth quarter, they came out of the third quarter up 36-14. So they went on essentially a 23-0 run in that third quarter. So it was just utter domination in there. Trevon Diggs had both of his picks in there. And like you said, I have to give credit to Dan Quinn for mixing things up. This is not the defense that he ran in Seattle and Atlanta. There's obviously some keys to it, but he's changed things up. The first quarter, I saw statistically, the first half, actually, they only blitzed on like 20-ish% of the plays. In that third quarter, they blitzed on like 70-something% of the plays. And so they came out, they got aggressive, they got in Sam Darnold's face, and they forced him to make some throws that, he wasn't fully ready for. So good win for the Cowboys. I'd still like to see their defense give up less yards. Sam Darnold had 300 through the air. TJ Moore gashed us for the most part, and I think they had 100 rushing as well. So, yeah, overall, good win for the Cowboys. I'm glad they won it. And the biggest takeaway I had was this felt like a game the last few years that the Cowboys would have choked, and they didn't. So good on the coaching staff.
Yeah, so we'll see if they keep that momentum up. Now they're in the lead now that they have the division lead for the NFC East. But going on to a lesser game, Indianapolis Colts took on the Miami Dolphins, and they pulled out a win, 27-17. I know John and I didn't expect that. We both picked Miami to not only win but cover. Really, I mean, I think this was just, if I had to factor mostly, I think desperation, like we mentioned, really factored in here. It's a real thing, especially for NFL teams. And Wentz looked a little better, but I think it was more leaning on the run game. Utilizing that first and building on their offense, run game first, and then the play actions, things like that. We saw Jonathan Taylor 100+ yards this game, but also Marlon Mack 10 carries, so they got more guys involved, and it worked out. Carson Wentz didn't have any turnovers, and on the flip side for Miami, I mean, without Tua, I mean, we saw just Jacoby Brissett, solid backup. But we see kind of why he's the backup. Misses maybe a throw here or there that he shouldn't miss if you're an NFL starter at least. And then also I think they lost with 2 fumbles too that game. The Dolphins had trouble holding on to the ball as well. I don't have much to say X and O's wise. I mean, it was just I think it was just really desperation for the Colts. Had to get that win, and especially now that we'll talk about them later. Now that Tennessee lost. I think they're only a game behind for the division. So all of a sudden, not only do you get your first win, they got a little bit of, not mojo, but they're not out of it yet. They still got half hope. So we'll see if they can carry that going forward. But John, what was your thoughts, if you have any, in regards to this one?
Good on the Colts. They came out. They handled their business. Carson Wentz looked good despite 2 sprained ankles. Jonathan Taylor had success despite Quentin Nelson not being able to play. Did he play in any part of this game, or I know he missed. I can't remember if he played and then got pulled out because of injury, or if he just didn't play at all. I know he missed a lot of it. So just good on the Colts, Carson Wentz, Jonathan Taylor for performing despite their best offensive lineman not being in there. So yeah, good win for the Colts. The AFC South is starting to look kind of They're only division in the league without a team with 3 wins. Jacksonville 0-4, Indianapolis 1-3, Houston 1-3, Tennessee's 2-2. So we'll see how that division stacks up. But ultimately, the Colts came, they took care of business, and I think to me the most surprising part was the Dolphins' lack of usage for Myles Gaskin. He basically didn't even really play in this game, and it seemed like he was the most talented running back I guess they had, but he only had 2 carries for 3 yards. So I don't know what that indicates for the Dolphins running game, because they have Malcolm Brown and Salvin Ahmed and just not a whole lot of depth there. I mean, like, they have options, but they're not impressive ones. And so that could make the Dolphins become a little bit one-dimensional. And we know in the NFL that doesn't bode well, especially since they're already 1-3. So don't really have much else to say about that one.
Okay. I was gonna say something. I think, and I haven't watched a lot of Dolphins. Maybe it's just last point. Maybe they feel Malcolm Brown's better in pass pro. I don't know. That's the only thing I can think of is why he's getting more time than Myles Gaskin, a guy who we saw last year can make plays, especially in the when he had in open space. So
right,
maybe that's the only thing I can really think of off the top of my head. But so we'll see how that situation unfolds. But going to the next game here. A little battle of master and apprentice. Kevin Stefanski, coach of the Browns, taking on the Vikings, the team he came from with Mike Zimmer. But the Browns win 14-7. Vikings win, scored opening possession, and after that didn't do much. And the Browns, I mean, it was a win. It was an ugly one, and granted, I think it's because kind of like when Bill Belichick faced one of his disciples, I think both sides kind of knew what the other wanted to do and some of their philosophies. But also, Browns should have won this game by more. Baker missed Odell on a few plays, and I think that some people are concerned. I'm not too concerned. I think that they're still getting their feet back together. Baker's finally comfortable with the system, but now Odell's finally back. So it's just got to get it together. Get on the same page is what I'm trying to. Is a better phrase for that. But I do want to shout out Browns defense. I mean, they've gotten better and better each week. Started off rough against Kansas City, but I think we like we mentioned first week, it was Kansas City. It's week one. Team's still figuring out, but week by week they've looked better and better. I'm not sure the snap count, but I feel like my guy Owusu Moore has been playing more, have had more of an impact as well. And also, obviously, new guys like John Johnson getting more comfortable within the scheme as well. And then, Tack McKinley had a sack this game. So Browns defense starting to show up, while their offense is figuring it out. But John, what were your thoughts in regards to this one?
I don't have a lot, just a defensive battle. Don't feel like there's much to say here. I highlight the Browns defense just like you did. I mean, they held the Vikings to 1 touchdown, and that's it. That's impressive for a team that has Dalvin Cook, who they held to 3.8 yards per carry, and only 65 total rushing yards for the entire Vikings offense. Justin Jefferson had a good game, but that was kind of it in the receiving end. So good on the Browns defense for holding strong in this one. 2 weeks in a row, they've proved me wrong on the starts and sits for QBs. I figured that Kirk Cousins would have some success here with the amount of weapons they had, but they couldn't get anything going. So, yeah, good win for the Browns. I don't really have much else to say in a 14-7 game,
Yeah, not much to add there. But going into the next game here, the New York Giants, another team that got their first win of the year. They beat out the New Orleans Saints in overtime, 27-21. Saquon Barkley with the go-ahead touchdown there. Once again, I think this shows, I will say this, Daniel Jones looking much better, making plays outside of the pocket if he needs to. Andrew Thomas starting to get his feet under him. I think he looked pretty. He's been looking pretty good since the start of the season. He didn't have a great preseason. That's what I was worried about. But he's been getting better and better. It seems like each game, and also Saquon seems to be getting a little better. Because I was surprised with how well they did run the ball. I know it wasn't great, but the fact that they ran the ball that well against the New Orleans Saints, who held the Packers to run game down, held New England's run game down as well. So credit the Giants for doing so. And then for the Saints, I saw someone mention this, and it's a great point. Alvin Kamara, it's like, I'm not sure if it's scheme or something, but not really involved in the passing game. They're really just running him as a running back purely. And I'm not sure if they need to re-bring that back into the mix, because, he is their best weapon as of right now on offense. And so, Saints got some things to figure out. Really on off. I think mostly on offense. Defense was okay. They had some injuries. Maybe chalk this up to a bad game, but I do have concerns about their offense going forward. But I am fairly confident Sean Payton will figure it out. But John, what were your thoughts in regards to this one?
I'm gonna say it. I think the Saints should bench Jameis Winston, put Taysom Hill at quarterback. I think this because last year we saw what Taysom was able to do at QB, and although Jameis is a better thrower, it's not like their offense looks bad. Like, they're not throwing the ball. I think they're like 31st in the NFL when it comes to pass attempts, passing yards. Like, they're so low. And I thought the whole point of Jameis was that he would unlock the deep ball for them. And I know they don't have a ton of receiving options. Michael Thomas is still hurt. Traquan Smith is still hurt. So there's some lack there. But like you said, Alvin Kamara is not even getting involved in the passing game. And it's disappointing. They're running the ball a lot with him. I think this is like the most carries he's ever had through 4 weeks. So they're still utilizing him. But I just feel like if this is what their offense is, I don't see how putting Taysom Hill would make it worse, because at least you get the option to get a lot of crazy QB runs, and then still, like, you're not going to, light it up passing wise. So I don't know what's going on in New Orleans. I don't know if it's a Jameis problem. I don't know if it's a scheme problem. I don't know if it's Sean Payton. Like, I'm a receiver talent problem. I don't know what it is, but I think they're just looking so inconsistent. This is a game they should have won, especially the way that they were playing throughout this game. The second half, just late in the game, fourth quarter, they just allowed the Giants to go on a run and then come out and win the game. So, yeah, I don't know really how to feel about the Saints. I feel like they just look like the most inconsistent team in football right now.
Yeah, that's true. So we'll see what happens there. But going on to the other New York team, New York Jets get their first win also against the Tennessee Titans in overtime as well, 27-24. Granted, Tennessee missing A.J. Brown and Julio Jones. I think you kind of feel it on their offense. I mean, really couldn't get much going in the passing game. And then the Jets, their defense does play hard, and their strength of their defense is, if there is a strength, is going to be their interior. Quinton Williams, C.J. Mosley, and also I didn't know they were brothers, but Quincy Williams also had a good game. They helped in regards to that, but also Zach Wilson. I think he's getting more and more comfortable, made more plays outside the pocket. I think first few weeks he was just playing it to the book, but now that he knows I think he has a better idea of what he can and cannot get away with. I mean, still threw a pick this game, but had 2 touchdowns. Missed some throws late, but once again, rookie going into it, they still won, and I'm sure he'll grow from those missed, and really just a few easy throws missed, and that's something he can clean up. But I'm not necessarily hitting the panic button on the Titans yet, but I think this is a concern to be noted going forward, is their depth. And also their defense really just been up and down. I mean, once again, this is a Jet team that struggled the last few weeks to even score, and they scored 27. So Matt Vrabel, defensive coach, got to figure some things out in that end, in my opinion. But regardless, good win for the New York Jets. And I'm glad they got one on the board because they really needed it. But John, what were your thoughts in regards to this matchup?
I don't really have a whole lot to say. The Jets, good win. They were the better team, just honestly, in this game. They showed up when it mattered towards the end. Zach Wilson, I think he showed what he can do when things are going right, and it's not just him under siege the whole game. He was only sacked once in this one. I think part of it is probably he's started to realize, okay, my offensive line can't hold up. I got to get the ball out here quicker. But also, I think the coaching staff is putting him in position to make some better plays. And also, he's just starting to adjust a little more to the NFL. So good on him in that offense. But I think the main storyline for me is the Titans are just really inefficient at offense in this one. I mean, Ryan Tannehill threw 49 times. They also ran 37 times, so they had a lot of offensive plays and only put up 24 points. They settled for, I think, 3 field goals, maybe 4.
Pull it up.
Yeah, 3 field goals, and they missed one to tie the game.
Yeah, in overtime. I remember that.
Yeah, so it's just offensive inefficiency is really what cost them in this one. And right now, the workload that Derrick Henry is getting is kind of absurd. I think he's on pace to crush like the single season touch record by like 70 or 80 touches. It's kind of getting crazy. I think the Titans need once Julio and AJ Brown get back, they need to get this passing game going and give Derrick Henry a little bit of a break and try to score faster as opposed to throwing 49 times and running 37 times.
I didn't realize he had 157 yards. It's like, that's the Derrick Henry effect. You just don't realize that until I just looked at the numbers now, because I was kind of more just watching that game. That was like the side game I had for a while. I did not realize he had 157 yards, and they still lost. So that's wild.
Yeah. So, I mean, it like I said, just comes down to they were getting these long drawn out drives, and they weren't putting the ball into the end zone. They were getting field goals. And I just don't think that's sustainable long term in the NFL. And it does suck because AJ Brown, Julio Jones both missed this game. So, you got to adjust to that. But ultimately, they just got to be more efficient, and they got to protect Tannehill better. He was sacked 7 times. So, yeah.
All right. So, yeah, and that's a big thing, too. I forget. I'm not sure if Lawan played this game, but regardless,
he did.
He did. Okay. Regardless, it's good to see if you're a Jets fan, good to see that their front four is getting better and better. That it is critical to what the defense that Saleh wants to run going forward. So, all right. So good win for the Jets there. The 2 New York teams going on to, I believe this was the last game of the noon slot. Kansas City Chiefs against the Philadelphia Eagles. They beat them 42-30. However, it was pretty close there for until Kansas City pulled away really in the second half, fourth quarter or such. Patrick Mahomes 5 touchdowns, just an average day in the office. Tyreek Hill 3 touchdowns. I think he had 100 and change yards. And then also too, I did like to see
He had 186.
186. I know he had a lot. I have him in our dynasty leagues. I should have known. But and also, I think the really big thing too is seeing that the run game's working too. They're being patient with the run game. Clyde is hilarious. I think he had another 100-yard game this week, right? Or he had close to.
Yeah, he had 100.
Okay, I couldn't remember that for some reason. And then obviously we're going to see this offense add in Josh Gordon. We'll see how that works this upcoming week. But I think the biggest concern for Kansas City going forward and big picture wise, this is their defense. This is a defense that I know wasn't world beating, but still was solid, middle of the pack. Like we mentioned, now it's just like John mentioned, they're one of the worst teams in terms of points allowed. I'm not sure if once again I have to watch this game closely or watch next week, but I'm not sure if it's the experience of Chris Jones at DN. Maybe he needs to go back inside, because he's more of a power, kind of short twitch kind of guy. I don't think, if I remember correctly, Frank Clark, at least the games I've seen, I'll have to rewatch this one. But I don't remember Frank Clark really popping either, and they gave him all that money. He has him great. I know he's a little bit more of a run defender, but still, there's that. And even with Honey Badger back, it's just, yeah. And this, I wouldn't say this was a concern of mine, but it was a thought that popped in my head because I remember Spagnuolo with the Giants. They had the year they had that great defense, the NYPD, New York pass defense, and then the next year they, for some reason, like nothing much changed. They should have been better, if anything, and it all fell apart kind of. And that's what I'm worried is kind of happening to Kansas City is that teams have figured out Spagnuolo, his tendencies, things like that. So I'm not sure which it is, but regardless, Kansas City's got to figure it out. They got Buffalo next week, and we all know, like we just mentioned, well-balanced offense. And I mean, this Eagles team, they should have. I don't just Jalen Hurts is good, but the fact that he carved them up for 380 yards, like that's concerning going forward. And they didn't really even get the run game going either. So, I mean, really just Jalen Hurts in the run game. So, yeah, Chiefs got question marks. Eagles, once again, not a playoff team in my mind, so I'm not going to sit here and sound the alarm. Good fight by them. But, John, what were your thoughts in regards to this, the Andy Reid Bowl?
Chiefs defense sucks. Frank Clark actually didn't play. I don't think he's played in a single game yet. So maybe that's why Chris Jones is at defensive end.
I thought it was in preseason. I thought it was like a thing where you get your best 11 on the field, doesn't matter, and also because they got Jaron Reed, so I thought they were trying to get Jaron Reed in there with Noddy in the inside, and then we'll kick Chris Jones outside with Frank Clark. I did not know Frank Clark hasn't played yet, so that's
sorry. Correction. He's missed the last two games. He played. Okay. He played in week 2. Okay. He did come back for that one, but I don't know if it's because of injury or he has this weapons charge from last year or something, and he's got to go to court. He went to court yesterday, I guess. Pled not guilty to it. Yeah, so maybe it's related to that. I don't know, but I think when he comes back, I would love to see Chris Jones back inside. He did nothing in this game. He had a QB hit, and that was it. No tackles, no sacks. I don't know how many pressures he had, but it was basically against the Eagles' backup offensive line. They had a lot of injuries in this one, and Chris Jones just isn't really becoming a factor. And so I feel like just put Chris Jones back on the inside, let him do what he does best, and let the guy go. Is it frozen on our end? Oh, nope, no. You were just sitting still. Okay.
Sorry.
You were so still that I thought you were frozen.
No, my grandmother texted me. Sorry, it doesn't happen very much.
You're good. Anyway, so good game on the Chiefs. I still am incredibly concerned with the Eagles' play calling. Once again, they had 100 rushing yards, but half of those are Jalen Hurts. If you take out Jalen Hurts rushing, they only ran the ball 11 times. 10 of those were with their running backs. One was a Jalen Reagor. And they averaged 5 a carry. I mean, Kenneth Gainwell, 3 carries for 31 yards, 10 per carry. He had a touchdown. Miles Sanders, 7 for 13. Run the ball more, Sirianni. Really, I know that this was a back and forth game, but even to start the game, they went up by 3. Then the Chiefs scored, but then they answered, and so they're up 10-3. Then the Chiefs scored again, and then they got a field goal. I mean, it was 21-13 at half. Like, I feel like there's plenty of time there to where you can continue to run the ball. And then, the Eagles get an interception too to start the half. To start the half. And then they get a field goal to go down. And it was a back and forth game, and they scored on a lot of these drives, but they weren't running the ball. I felt like if they did, They could have tried to control the game more, keep it out of Mahomes and Tyreek Hill's hands because those guys just scored on them whenever they wanted. So,
Well, and you're not gonna out. Very few teams can out shoot out Kansas City. I don't know why I'm struggling with the phrase there. So yeah, like Philadelphia, like you just mentioned, like know who you are. Like I think that's what happened too. I didn't even realize that, but yeah, that makes more sense. Like you try to get in a shoe with Kansas City, you're not going to win that.
And just for clarification here, the Chiefs scored on every single drive except for the interception. That was the only one they didn't score.
So
on.
They didn't need a punter, is what I'm hearing. Their punter
they didn't punt.
The punter got a day off of work, paid day off, PTO.
Yeah, I mean, credit to the Eagles. The only 2 drives they didn't score on were the one right before halftime. They had 5 plays they couldn't score. There was only 56 seconds, and they couldn't score on that one.
Gotcha.
And then later in the game, they were down 35-23. They went for it, so they didn't even punt on that one. So there was no punters in this game at all. But yeah, I feel like if you're the Eagles, you got to run the ball there to try and control this game more, as opposed to letting the Chiefs score literally every possession except for one.
Yeah. So, So mainly more concerned about the Chiefs since we feel like we'll be talking about them more in January, February. No offense. Yeah. Sorry, Eagles fans. But I do hope your defense gets better for your sake. But, y'all got some rebuilding to do and stuff like that. So it's less likely. You have less talent on defense, I want to say. Chiefs as a whole, they still have Honey Badger. They have Mike Hughes, some solid corners. Charvarius Ward's always been solid the past few years. Darius Sneed had a good rookie year, but for some reason it's not clicking right now.
Which Ward didn't play in this game, so that might be part of it too.
Maybe that too, but still, like it's been this way the first 4 games, so they got to clean that up somehow, some way. So that is the Chiefs and Eagles. Going on to what we thought was going to be the game of the afternoon. LA Rams took on or hosted the Arizona Cardinals and lost. Cardinals won 37-20. Pretty shocking, but I feel like the game was closer than the score indicated. Matt Stafford missed. There's another game where Matt Stafford really was on the same page with Deshaun Jackson. I think that's just something he has to get. He's just not used to having a deep threat like that since Calvin Johnson. So I think that's fixable. I think that's something Sean McVay gets in his ear. Says, "Look, Matt, it's better to overthrow him than underthrow him. So just let it loose next time." I thought they would clean it up last week, but credit the Cardinals. I mean, Vance Joseph. I know you especially been very high on him. He was threw a lot of different things at the Rams, took away a lot of their short intermediate passes that they love to get with Cooper Kupp, and I know Robert Woods has been struggling, but regardless, he wasn't able to get really involved as well. And then especially on offense. I mean, offense, I thought that this defense, a defense that is pretty much built to stop Seattle and chase around Russell Wilson with speed. I underestimated, and I shouldn't have, underestimated Kyler Murray because, man, like, they just couldn't catch him. Like, it's just that plain and simple. Their secondary solid, but it didn't matter. Like, because Kyler Murray extended the play, and I don't care if you have 4 Deion Sanders out there. It's tough to cover, especially the receivers they have for the time that, for like 5-6 seconds. That's the time that Kyler was running around. So I didn't factor that into my pick, and I should have. So kudos to you, John. I think you did pick the Cardinals, right?
I did.
Yeah, so and I picked
one of the ones I got right this week.
Yeah, but credit the Cardinals, and then once again, credit Cliff Kingsbury. Patient enough with the run, but some creative pass concepts too. Get some guys into winning plays, and then if it doesn't work, hey Kyler, make magic, and Kyler did make magic. But I really do want to emphasize the run. Chase Edmonds, 12 carries, 120 yards. That's like 10 yards to carry. That's amazing. And then James Conner too, 18 for 50, 2 touchdowns on top of that. And then, DeAndre Hopkins was injured this game. I think he was dealing with an injury. He played, though. Didn't matter, though, because, A.J. Green had been having a second straight week of a really good game, a vintage-esque A.J. Green. And then also Max Williams, their tight end, hopped around the league a little bit. He's been playing really well and producing for them as well. So, got some momentum Arizona going forward. And then the last undefeated team. John, what are your thoughts in regards to what occurred here?
I just got to give a big shout out to Vance Joseph. Like I said, I love the guy. I think that he's just been working wonders for the Cardinals. They have a really unorthodox coaching staff set up to where Cliff Kingsbury isn't like a normal head coach. He really only focuses on the offense. And so that means that Vance Joseph is basically just a head coach who only focuses on the defense. Like those two guys are essentially just both sharing head coaching duties, and they only focus on their respective side of the ball. And I also got to give a shout out to, I can't remember their general manager's name, Steve Wilkes, I think their GM. This is the future of the NFL. Right. Like this sort of defensive style that they're doing is the future of the NFL. They don't run, basically they barely run any dime package, which is, for anyone who doesn't know, that's where you have 6 defensive backs on the field. And that's because they don't have to, because they've drafted the linebackers like Isaiah Simmons, who he can basically play like a safety in passing coverage. And he can play like a linebacker against the run. So that sort of thing, we're seeing it increasingly more common in the NFL. Look at the Buccaneers, Devin White and Levante David, Buda Baker, and he's more of a safety, but he's a hard hitter. He can get in the box. And then Isaiah Simmons is popping. Even, my Cowboys, Micah Parsons, Keanu Neal switch over to linebacker. The Chargers with Kenneth Murray. Like, it's just becoming so common that all these guys, even, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah for the Browns, very similar in that respect too. This is the future. Linebackers who can, be really good in coverage. This is how you stop these high-scoring offenses. And it's funny because I think that's the blueprint that's going to take to stop an offense like the Cardinals, because of the speed they have, the positionless football that they can play with Kyler Murray and Chase Edmonds, who's a running back, but also a receiver. Rondale Moore is a receiver, but he can play a little running back if they want him to. Like, there's just so much versatility on this team, both offensively and defensively. That I'm really impressed with the Cardinals. I'm not quite ready to apologize to Cliff Kingsbury like a lot of people are saying that we should, because it's 4 games into the year. We saw them ball out last year, and then they collapsed late. I got to see Cliff do it for a whole season before I'm willing to do that.
Yeah, and actually, really good segue. I was about to mention this team, but we saw Seattle do this. Like, Seattle popped off first 7 games. The offense was cooking, and then teams adjusted. Seattle didn't adjust, and it kind of and once again, like you just mentioned, it was even like that failed Murray game, and Kyler Murray only had like 270 yards passing. That was really the start of the end there for them. And I mean, if they wasn't for that, I mean, afterwards they started really struggling. But that was really the start of when they started getting exposed last year, and they couldn't adjust. And so we'll see if they can. Also, maybe too with the speed teams, we'll see how they last in December, January, when you got to go and play in some, Green Bay or Chicago. I'm not saying you're playing Chicago this year, but colder weather. So is the philosophy: fast guys can be slower, but big people don't get smaller in terms of a span of a game. So we'll see. But great to mention. Crazy linebacking core they have. Jordan Hicks, Zaven Collins playing well too, and Isaiah Simmons. They do a lot, and then credit Vance Joseph for capitalizing on that. But yeah, like I mentioned, next game here, keeping it kind of actually in that division. Seattle Seahawks beat the San Francisco 49ers 28-21. The main story of this game, Jimmy G went out, calf injury, in comes Trey Lance. And we'll see what they do going forward. But for Seattle, I think that contributed too, because 49ers offense really could never get going, especially in the pass game. I mean, really, that big touchdown to Trey Lance connected with Deebo Samuel to his broken coverage. I mean, if you watch back, Jamal Adams passing it off to who he thought had a corner there. No one was there. They just left him, and it was just broken play. In regards to Trey Lance, I know that's the big topic. Obviously, I hope that they give him a chance, but I will say we're starting to kind of see why Kyle didn't go with him. I mean, they missed some easy throws, some throws that you got to make. But once again, he's young, he's raw. He has time to clean those up, and obviously, if he plays, I think he will. But got kind of the Josh Allen syndrome, where he's just trying to literally just throw a bullet, basically, trying to rifle every pass in there. Like, no, you gotta learn that you can loft time some passes. Right. Because you're not going to be able to rifle it in every time. But you did see the mobility on display. I mean, a lot of their drives in the fourth quarter, it was like a 4th down. I was sitting there like, okay, they're probably not going to get this because he's missed 2 straight passes they should have made, and then he makes a run for 10 yards and they keep the drive alive. So, but in regards to Seattle, I mean, solid win for them. But like I mentioned, I just feel like San Francisco dealing with all the injuries of the running backs. I think Trent Williams also got hurt during this game as well, so missing their star left tackle. So really, it feels like the 49ers syndrome where the injuries start striking at the wrong time. But John, what were your thoughts in regards to this divisional matchup?
It was a big win for Seattle. They didn't want to fall in the 0-3 hole, especially against the Niners, who are a divisional opponent. It sucks that Jimmy G got hurt because I can't remember what the score was at that point, but I think that, like you said, Trey Lance, although statistically he looks like he had a really good game, I mean, half of his passing yards essentially came on one play, so did that touchdown. And like you said, that was just a miscommunication in coverage from the Seattle defense. And also, you got to take any sort of success Trey Lance had against his defense with a grain of salt because
One of
this
the
is
worst defenses.
yeah, I think they are allowing the most yards per game in the NFL. So can't really take a whole lot away from it because even in this game, they gave up 450 total yards. So, it is what it is. But the fact that the Seattle offense was able to win this game and the defense, they gave up 450 yards and they only allowed 21 points. I think that's something to be said for they bent, but they did not break. The classic old saying. So good for Seattle. The Chris Carson injury is going to be one to monitor. I don't think it's going to keep him out of any games. But if he is out, it's going to be a little tough for them because he is sort of the lifeblood of what they like to start with their offense to do, establish the run game, and then, attack passing wise after that. So, tough divisional matchup. Can't say it was the most exciting of games, but ultimately it was a good one, I think, for both teams because for Seattle, you got the win. For San Fran, you got to see a little bit of Trey Lance and what he can do. And although he wasn't amazing, there was some flashes, especially in the running ability to, be good down the road whenever he eventually does become the starter.
Yeah, and maybe with the week of first team reps and actually a game plan around him, he'll be better next week. So
Right.
We'll see. I forgot who they play. I picked him. I put a waiver in for him too. I should have remembered. I forgot.
The Niners, I'll look it up right now.
I just got a minute ago. Cowboys releasing Jalen Smith.
Oh my gosh, what?
It was on Sleeper, but it's supporting via Adam Schefter, so I'm trusting Shefty. Like it's ain't.
I mean, listen, I can't say I'm surprised. I said that they were probably going to do it.
All right, well,
That's wait, really? Because they already guaranteed his contract. That's weird to me. They did. Adam Schefter, ESPN just put it out. Shocking.
I don't on pod.
Why didn't they do this before the season?
All right, now Bill's gonna come in and give him give him a minimum contract, and he's gonna, be well over there. I'm trying to think of another team that needs a linebacker.
I mean, listen, all I'm going to say is because I know I'm already looking at Twitter and all these people are, looking at the Adam Schefter tweet talking about how good Jalen Smith is. The guy, although he's been okay this year, I think the addition of Micah Parsons and Keanu Neal and some of these guys to cover his weaknesses have made him look a little better than he is, but he's still slow. He still reacts slowly. He's not good in pass coverage. So, I mean, he's going to help a team. He's a starting quality linebacker, but you have to understand that he is not what he was 3 years ago.
Yeah, I'm just before we move on, cause I know maybe hear it. There's another team that if I had to say immediate destination, Cleveland wouldn't be too bad. He could be there more run stopping with Orosu Koromo. I'm trying to think. I don't know. No, it's tough to. He'll find a home. He's obviously talented, second round pick. At the time of the contract, it looked like it was a very deserving contract. So there's going to be a team that's going to want to give him a shot. Hell, John Gruden probably might. John Gruden loves his linebackers. So John Neal will be giving him a call. Hey, man, you want to come to Las Vegas? So
I still I don't get why they did it now. They fully guaranteed his contract. They had to pay all $9 million of it once they kept him on the roster. I can't remember when the cutoff date was. Maybe it was before the draft, but why do it now?
I thought it was week 1, right? I think there was preseason. There was thoughts that y'all were going to trade him then or release him. I think we talked about it in the preview at one point.
As much as I don't dislike Jalen Smith. I actually like him. I'm just critical of him. As much as critical as I am of him, I don't like this move because if somebody gets hurt, if say Micah Parsons gets hurt, Leighton Vander Esch gets hurt, you just lost some depth from a guy who's been there. He's got experience, and although he's lost a step or two, he's still good, especially against the run. So I'm not a fan of this move, especially since they got to pay him all the money anyway.
Maybe and we'll make this last point before we go on. Maybe he felt, and this happens with players, maybe he felt like he just wants a bigger role, and even though and then maybe they felt that you don't really deserve that bigger role. Maybe then he said, "Well, look, since you obviously can't trade me, can you just cut? I would like to be cut." And you already I don't know, and maybe he can go where he wants to and try to on a prove a deal or something. It's a weird thing. Like I agree with you, so.
It just worries me he's going to go to the Giants because they lost Blake Martinez, and I'm not like scared of Jalen Smith, but like why potentially give a divisional rival a better option than whoever they have right now? I don't even know who their backup is.
I have no clue either. So, alrighty. Well, that's interesting and live on air. But I'm going to the next game here. Baltimore Ravens beat the Denver Broncos 23-7. In regards to this game, I mean, really, it was Lamar Jackson showing with his passing that really stole the show. Hit Hollywood Brown deep, and this time Hollywood caught it on a big touchdown. And two important to factor in for the Broncos. Lost Teddy Bridgewater in this game. And really, they're already down KJ Hamler and Jerry Jeudy going in this game. So it was injuries kind of hitting them as well. Drew Lock filled in, did okay. But really, it was an uphill battle by the time when he got in. And I think he was more concerned with taking care of the ball. I don't want to call the Broncos frauds like some people are. I think they still have a solid team. But we'll see what happens with them going forward. But for the Ravens, this was a good win, especially after... I think was it last week they beat the Chiefs, or the week before? I'm forgetting. I'm blanking.
They beat them in week 2.
Week 2. Who did they play last week?
They played
the
Lions. The Lions, 66-yard field goal.
I forgot. Yeah. So it was a good win, I think, too, for your confidence to kind of blow out a team after barely eking out against the Lions, beating a good Denver team I think it was at Mile High too. So good for them on that. But for the Broncos, I'm not hitting the panic button per se. We'll see the health on Teddy, and they know it's a concussion, so he could be back next week. I'm not losing too much faith in the Broncos in this one. But John, what were your thoughts in regards to the Ravens Broncos game?
Good win for the Ravens. I was a little bit shocked by the Broncos game plan. Teddy Bridgewater gets hurt, doesn't come back to the game. Drew Lock, short notice, has to go in there. Your running backs are averaging 6 yards a pop each, and you only ran it 17 times. I don't really get what happened there. I mean, I didn't watch this game, so I don't know if it was the game script. Maybe they ran a lot early, got down big, and so they started passing. I don't know fully, but it just seems like they were having success on the ground. Only 17 carries, but they had 100 yards. So it just seems like maybe they would have ran a little bit more as opposed to throwing it 37 times. But good win for the Ravens.
And maybe
I wouldn't panic on the Broncos either. Just real quick. Obviously, the teams they all faced in the first 3 weeks all sucked, but I still think there was positive signs for the Broncos here. Their defense, they held the Ravens to 23 points. Lamar only had 1 touchdown, so they still did well, but they just weren't really able to put up points. And maybe that was just they couldn't finish drives. Once again, I didn't watch this game, so I don't fully know what was going on.
Yeah, I have to go back and watch this one. But I feel like because Baltimore's been known to do this, they love to pack the box and then bail. Yeah. So maybe that's what they were scaring the Broncos out of running the ball because they were gashing them. Right. But really, that's what they wanted. And Broncos didn't call their bluff, and it was just a tough day. But yeah, we'll see how both these teams go going forward. Both 3-1, so still in the driver's seat for the playoffs as of right now. But going on to the last, but not least, afternoon game, the Green Bay Packers took on the Pittsburgh Steelers, beat them 27-17. Just to put simply, another bad game for Big Ben. I mean, he started off with a good deep pass touchdown to Deontay Johnson. Even though Deontay Johnson got away with the push off, it happens because then later, going down the timeline, it should have been a block. The field goal was blocked, and they timed it perfectly. For those that it's just unfortunate that the call was made there, because really that could have changed the story of the game. Because afterwards Green Bay makes the field goal, and we only won the game by 10. That was literally a 10-point swing. May have been a completely different game because Pittsburgh's defense was doing pretty well, as they've all done all year. But really, I think the main concern is Pittsburgh's offense. We also saw in the first half, Big Ben misses Juju on a basically walk-in touchdown, and then misses him again later in the second half on or maybe it was late in the first half, forgetting. But it was kind of like a seam route. Just missed him again. I don't like I said last episode. I don't want to take away from what Big Ben has done in his career, but getting to the point where, like, even as my friend that was Pittsburgh fan was over, like he's like, I've been waiting for Haskins' time, and it doesn't sound like that they will. And I understand Mike Tomlin's thought process. You want to keep the veteran in, like that experience is very valuable, invaluable basically. But I mean, you saw Juju. Everyone saw the memes. Like Juju was frustrated, and it's affecting the offense. And I know that the run game got going, but this is a Packer team that's been known to let up the run. So I take that with a grain of salt. But if I were a Pittsburgh fan, but yeah, Pittsburgh. I don't know if it's, some people calling for Cam Newton. I don't know if he's the answer, but I think they need to change things up at quarterback if they want to have success this year. Otherwise, I mean, I think they're playing for next year. But John, what were your thoughts in regards to this one?
Randall Cobb, welcome back. He balled out, had a good game, 2 touchdowns. Aaron Rodgers, he loves the guy. I think Big Ben, it's reminding him of Eli Manning's final year. It's a little different because they had Daniel Jones. He was, 6th overall pick or something like that.
Yeah.
So, there was a very clear option that fans might want to replace him. Haskins doesn't have as much hype behind him. But
I think he's third on
overall,
the depth chart too. It would be Mason Rudolph if we're going by their depth chart too.
yeah, and I don't think Mason Rudolph's the guy.
We've already seen Mason Rudolph. They would have made the switch already.
And honestly, I think the season's probably lost unless Big Ben can figure things out, because this offensive line sucks, and we already know that. And I don't think that Haskins or Mason Rudolph are going to have success behind them, because at least Big Ben's a veteran and he can know, okay, I just got to get rid of the ball, and that's why Najee Harris is getting so many catches throughout the year so far. So I don't know. I'm just kind of out on the Steelers. I feel bad for Juju, I guess, but he chose to come back for a year. At least he was smart to only take a 1-year deal. But it seems like this is probably Big Ben's last hurrah, and it's probably not going to be a good one.
I will say, though, and I don't mean to pile on Ben, and this may be because of the Packers, we lost Preston Smith for a little bit of the game, but had clean pockets. It's just the throws, like he had time to step in and throw. Yeah, I mean, but I just...
Yeah, just for clarification, I'm not defending Big Ben. I think he should have retired last year because he's not playing like a starter.
The main issue is there were throws that, once again, like I mentioned with Trey Lance, like every starting NFL quarterback should make, and he was missing them bad. It wasn't like hitting the receiver's bubble. It was just bad. Either Big Ben's got to go through the whole like overnight transformation or something, because it's a mess down there for at least offensively. Defense, I feel bad for them. They're sitting there trying to keep them in games, and they just can't finish them for them. So, alrighty, going on to the Sunday night, or the main game of the weekend. Tampa Bay traveled to New England. Tom Brady versus Bill Belichick. Even though I love the comment that Bruce Arians made, like Bill isn't on the field, so why is it that? But it was a very close game here. 19-17, went down to the wire. It was raining. It was pretty much perfect. And I thought, is it me, or it rained harder when it started raining even harder when the Patriots were on their final drive? That's what I felt like. So I was like, man, this is really just against them. Nick Folk missed a touchdown, missed a field goal to go ahead at the end. And some people criticizing Bill Belichick. Oh, you should have gone for it. I mean, obviously now he knows that his kicker barely, it almost went in. It just didn't have enough. Probably if it wasn't pouring rain, it might have gone in. But I think a little bit factored in the Bill was 4th and 3. We're starting our rookie quarterback. Like, I didn't think he wanted to roll the dice on one more down. If it was obviously Tom Brady, or maybe even Cam, I think he would have rolled the dice. A guy that he can fully trust, can make a play. But I think he went with, the kicker, which, once again, almost made the kick. But I will give credit. Patriots defense did the darndest that they could, try to keep their team in the game, even though the Patriots offense, which, once again, not to Mac Jones' fault, even the interception off someone's hands. I think they fumbled twice. New England. I know they fumbled at least once. Very not New England-esque. Very known for, ball security. But like, Chris Collinsworth mentioned in the broadcast, which is a very good point. Like, this is a Patriot team that's going to get better throughout the season. They are not at their best right now. Like we mentioned last year too, Bill Belichick, they got a lot of new pieces that they got to coach up. Matt Judon, their two tight ends. We saw a little bit of them in the game. Even their wide receivers, Kendrick Bourne, Aguilar, and obviously Mac Jones. But regardless, not going to take away for the Bucs. They won this game. Defense, really mainly because of their defense. Tom did a great job managing the game. He didn't try to force a blowout, not try to throw all over the Patriots, get the super revenge. He said, I'm just going to play the team game right and win this game. But yeah, credit the defense. There's a reason this Bucs defense is so highly touted. Force some plays, force some turnovers, but we'll see because lost a bunch of corners. Richard Sherman got picked on and is obviously not the Richard Sherman of before because he was getting roasted. And I think Antoine Winfield Jr. got hurt this game as well. So he's obviously a key piece for the back end. But John, what were your takeaways in regards to the Brady Belichick Bowl here?
I hope everyone took the under. It was pretty obvious that you should. This game, it went. I wasn't going to say it went fully as expected. I didn't really expect the rain. The rain was a pretty big factor. I think any NFL player would ever tell you if there's rain, it's hard to play football. Things get slippery and it's rough. I think the rain played a big factor. And I think it sucks for the Patriots because it seemed like you said, it got really hard towards the end of the game.
Yeah, like that literally after they hit the Bucs at the field goal, I was like, it's like noticing it's not raining that much, and then I actually started seeing the rain on the screen. I was like, okay, I think it's starting to rain more. That just sucks.
Yeah, so that sucks. I was a bit shocked that the Patriots literally completely abandoned the run.
It wasn't working.
I'm not gonna say I'm like super surprised because I had Damian Harris on the sits list for a reason. The Bucs have a really good run defense. It's not going to have success there, but they only ran it 8 times. I figured maybe they'd get at least like 12, 15 and then call it quits. But they said, no, we're not going to even try this. We're going to just go with what works. And that's Mac Jones. And we're going to throw the ball. Mac had a good game. He looked impressive. I think for his own sake, that's the kind of game he needed to have to make sure that there wasn't all these people going crazy and hating on him. Because imagine if he came out and threw like 3 picks, 0 touchdowns in this one, he would have been getting roasted so much and put so much pressure put onto him simply because of the magnitude of Tom Brady's return. But it was a close one. Patriots, they had the field goal to go out and win this one. They couldn't get it. And so, yeah, I know a lot of people are going to come away from this one, especially legacy wise, and say, oh, Tom Brady, he beat Bill Belichick. There's another reason that, Bill needed Tom, blah, blah, blah. This game felt like a tie, honestly. So I don't really have much else to say. I did get this one wrong on the pick'ems, but I'm okay with that because I was shaking in my boots the whole night because Mike Evans needed 18 to beat me in fantasy. He only got 14. So I was a little nervous.
And important to mention, too, this Patriots team isn't no Stephon. If they have Stephon Gilmore too, then maybe they win this game because there was a few times when J.C. Jackson, or even when J.C. Jackson was on them, that they were able to throw to Mike Evans or Chris Godwin because they just have so many weapons. So I just feel like obviously with the extra corner, I think they probably would have won. That's in my eyes. But regardless, and also that's the last thing I wanted. I did want to also give more credit, heap more praise onto Mac Jones. Like John mentioned, they abandoned the run and they put the game in Mac Jones' hands, trusted him to run no huddle. Things like that. He made the right calls, made the right reads, made good throws all night. They just came literally by the field goal came up short. So,
also random one thing of note: Jamie Collins is reportedly potentially returning to New England on a deal.
That doesn't shock me. He always comes back and he'll be like almost not a Pro Bowl, but he'll have a really good season and then get a big contract elsewhere. They don't use him. I guess Bill is the only one that knows how to really use him.
Yeah.
And it'll happen again until Jamie finally retires. It always happens with those Patriot defenders. Like Kyle Van Noy, I think he signed, I forgot where he signed, but he went back to England. Then he signed with Miami last year. Then Miami released him, which I thought was shocking because I thought if anyone else would know how to use him, it would be Brian Flores from New England. But no, I guess Bill Belichick, he knows how to tap into those linebackers and get the most out of them. But all right, going to the last game, Monday Nighter. Chargers beat the Raiders, beat the last so the Raiders are no longer undefeated, 28-14. I mean, really, the story was first half, Justin Herbert and the gang really jumped out in front of the Las Vegas Raiders. Herbert was, once again, I think, if what happened previously had not put this issue to rest, I think it should be put to rest now. Justin Herbert, better than Tua talking about. Now, Tua can still be good, but I think we're seeing Justin is just a machine, back there. And like we mentioned, Tua with the injuries, but Justin with his size and his just natural throwing ability, and they capitalize off that. Once again, like we mentioned for the Broncos, I'm not going to call the Raiders frauds. I think that they just got to find ways to get off the quicker starts, because each of these, even all their 4 other games, I mean, really kind of had slow starts, and then they started picking it up at the end once they figured out what they wanted, what was working. So I just think that John Gruden and the gang there, they just need to maybe find ways to have, how Andy Reid has like the 10 or 20 first plays, or like a scripted game plan specific. Maybe they need to figure something like that out. But also maybe getting Josh Jacobs back. That was his first game back. Maybe him getting back fully will help them out. But still good win for the Chargers, and it makes the AFC West more interesting, because now Chiefs are only 1 game behind both those teams, as opposed to if the Raiders won, they would be 2 games behind. So we'll see what happens there. But good win for the Chargers. John, what were your thoughts on the Monday Nighter?
Chargers are the real deal, man. They're really good. The offensive line handled the pressure well. Herbert was only sacked twice, and I mean, the guy, he's a beast. I think there's like only a few quarterbacks in my life that I've been able to see throw the ball with the kind of like velocity and accuracy that he does. Like,
And it's
even
effortless for him. Like, it doesn't look like he's trying that hard.
It feels like really the only guys that I can think of that have done that would be like Aaron Rodgers and Mahomes. Like, even Josh Allen doesn't look as easy as Justin Herbert makes it look. And that's no slight at Josh Allen. That's just like Herbert just looks so casual. Like, it doesn't look like it's taking him any effort to just throw the ball the way that he does. So Herbert's a beast. I mean, it's just, I feel like it makes the Dolphins look even worse for taking Tua, just the way that Herbert plays. But good win for the Chargers, especially in a hostile home game. Like, there were more Raiders fans out there than were Chargers fans. That seems to be kind of common for the Chargers. I don't know what the backstory is behind why the Chargers just don't really have a whole lot of fans. I don't know if it's because of the San Diego to LA move.
I think that's what it was, really, because LA and then the Rams. Didn't the Rams think they moved there first, and then
the Rams were there first,
and then LA. I think our friend Mike said that LA's also got like a pretty good amount of Oakland fans, because I was closer, but then they moved to Vegas. So like,
also, I think the Raiders and Rams also both used to play in LA at some point.
Yeah,
so
I think that factored in too.
I don't know. Anyway, sucks for the Chargers. They don't have a lot of home fans, especially since they're doing really good. But good game for them. Joey Bosa, I want to pull up this quote that he had after the game. I don't know if you saw it.
Probably did.
It was kind of funny. He's taking some shots at the Raiders. He said, this was in reference to getting pressure on Derek Carr. He said, "We knew once we hit him a few times, he gets really shook. He was pretty much curling into a ball before we even got back there. Great dude, great player. But we know once you get pressure on him, he kind of shuts down." I thought it was funny because, I mean, it's a divisional matchup. It's probably a rivalry. Probably, hates the guys on the other side of the ball, respects them, but wants to beat them every time. And I think that was just some funny mental warfare there after the game, saying that, like, listen, we're gonna get pressure on this guy, and he's seeing ghosts out there. So I don't know. I just thought it was funny.
Yeah, I would agree. Obviously, not necessarily true, but yeah, obviously, I mean,
yeah,
I mean, it's something we don't really have nowadays. Is the rivalries. I don't think they're that. I don't say strong, but you know what I mean. That prominent, the rivalries, especially in the NFL. But
there's a few, like, Steelers, Ravens. I mean, as a Cowboys fan, I hate the Eagles, but
if you live up to like the hype, I think that's because nowadays with the salary cap, it's harder to stay relevant for unless you're New England, or like Pittsburgh and Baltimore have stayed relevant for a long time. But like Packers, Bears, Packers, Lions, like I don't want to be sitting here. I don't want to be saying that like. I don't know if I'm saying. I don't know what I'm saying. I'm not trying to brag, but in my lifetime,
it's not really a rivalry.
We really
if, like, one team dominates.
Yeah, we really like. There's been like maybe a year, like, oh, the Bears got us this year. Jay Cutler, and then we got him back in the playoffs. And the Lions, they got it. The Vikings, got this year, but then we come back the next year. Granted, that's because we had Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. But
I think it was like Joel Embiid who said it about the Celtics, or Lamar maybe said it about the Chiefs, but they're like, it's not really a rivalry if they beat us every time.
It was Joel, which I have one reason. I know it's NBA, but that's one reason I love Joel. He keeps it real.